Welcome to the show, Pyros. We are excited to announce our first webcast, something we're going to be doing on a weekly basis, talking about a myriad of fantasy football subjects, going through them and doing them in a video style. We're going to try and keep them between 10 and a half an hour. We know we're long-winded, but this being our first webcast, let's see what we got here. We'll do our best for you. This show is going to be about touchdown dependency. Obviously in fantasy football, you can get points by yards, you can get points by touchdowns, you can get points, negative points by making mistakes, what have you. We're going to try and, first off, talk about how you came up with this awesome chart and why we use it and when's a good time to kind of focus in on the details and the empirical data that it provides. And then on top of that, what we're going to do is look back at players from last year and what their touchdown dependencies were, versus their yardage, versus their touchdowns, and talk about a few guys that we think will get more touchdowns and help out their cause from that route of fantasy points, and then we'll also go through a few guys and talk about how they might have less touchdowns. So first off, Stag. I have Stag here. I've got Houdini here. I'm D-Rex. We are Pyromaniac.com. And Stag Party, my question for you is, what do you think the value is in this chart? And when it came to your mind that you wanted to create this chart, what was the reasoning and the impetus behind that?
Well, there's a couple things. You just got to sort of think. Touchdowns help win games. You know, yards might be more predictable on a season-to-season basis, while touchdowns are going to fluctuate a lot more. So, you know, just kind of knowing how those two things work together and how the relationship a player has. If he's scoring all his points per touchdowns, like Kyle Rudolph a couple years ago, like Vernon Davis last year, or 2 years ago now, and, you know, some other guys, we'll talk about it a little bit later. You know, if they're scoring all their points through touchdowns, you've got to think these guys are the most likely guys to regress next season. And, you know, just being able to easily identify them, identify a couple of them, you know, career years, sort of, but career years from a touchdown department, like, be aware, you know, these things are probably going to regress. Guys aren't going to score 15 touchdowns for you every season long unless they're absolute dominators.
This is so key, and this is something that it's almost like this is your first indicator of the guys that are going to fall. You know, especially more so in that regard. You can always project the guys who are going to have a better chance to score more touchdowns as well, and those will be some key guys that just stand out to you also. But I remember a couple years ago when it was James Jones, only had about 887 yards receiving for Green Bay, but he had, was it 15 touchdowns?
Yeah, something ridiculous.
So, you know, 15 or 14 touchdowns. You just know there were people who were jumping all over him in dynasty leagues and things like that, thinking about, oh, next year, and they're moving him up the charts, and they're thinking that he's going to be all this. Well, no, because the logical sense is that he's not going to do that again, and he sure as hell didn't.
It's true. And another thing, it goes back to a Houdini thought piece, and that's know your league. If you're in a league that's rewarding a ton of points for yardage, then, you know, a chart like this, you can revert back to and be like, hey, this guy's not a yardage guy. This guy gets his volume of points from touchdowns, and that's something that you have to know going in your league because every fantasy league's got different rules, and you don't want to be drafting the guy that scores a lot of touchdowns, especially at a certain position like a quarterback, if you're only getting 4 points for your touchdowns, and that guy's not getting any points from the yards.
And, yeah, knowing your league has a lot to do with maybe you don't start getting points to 50 yards, or maybe you get bonuses at 100 yards. And all those little intricacies of your league going into it, it's going to help you kind of realize if you need a yardage player, if you need a touchdown player.
Right.
Or, you know, the perfect balance of what you need, you know, of who you want to look for. So let's just sort of talk about some guys last year who we think are going to, you know, who did what they did last year and how we think they're going to move up. We'll sort of break it down by position and kind of go from there.
Let's do it.
The chart itself's broken down into, you know, each position, and then it gives you little breakdowns as well for, you know, 1 through 10 and 11 through 20 and stuff like that, just to kind of give you an idea of how the top guys at the position score their points and how the guys lower down the level score their points. Because it seems like the guys lower down usually get more points from yardage.
Right.
They just don't score touchdowns, and that's why they're lower down on the list. That's why they finished lower down in fantasy points.
And another cool thing about this chart is for quarterbacks and then for running backs especially, is we're showing how many touchdowns a quarterback gets through passing the ball,
right,
as well as how many touchdowns he's getting by running the ball. And obviously at the quarterback position, as we know and we've been talking about on this podcast for ages, running backs that can knock you out at another 6 touchdowns from the ground are going to be the dudes that are usually going to be top 10 dudes. So let's start out with the quarterback position. You know, one thing I'll say before is this chart, and we'll put a reference to this chart. I don't know how I can do that in the system, but
you'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. But basically at the top it shows, you know, passing yards, points from your passing yards, passing yard percentage, and then you got passing TDs, points from passing TDs, passing percentage from TDs, interceptions, points from interceptions, percentage loss from interceptions, rushing yards, points from those rushing yards percentage, then rushing TDs, points from rushing TDs, rushing T percentage, fantasy points.
You got that?
It's hard to follow, but just letting you guys know, this is a dope, minutiae, detailed chart that when you're going through the 4 different positions, at the skill positions that matter for fantasy owners, and then you can go and look into the deep guys. There's some great trends that you can see, and really, something like this, mostly we're using to depict where guys are slotted in our chart. It's one of the cogs in the wheel of different kind of stats and details that we at Pyro like to do on a regular basis. And you know, we don't take everything and say, you can't rely all on touchdown percentages, obviously. But if you use that as a cog, if you use SOS as a cog, if you're using power and numbers,
we are
teams
not
that
just
are great.
throwing players up there willy nilly. There's absolutely a lot that goes into it. This is one of these major components. So.
Every great dish is made up of many different ingredients. You put them all together, you cook it up, and it comes out championship.
Cheese and bread, grilled cheese. That's it.
Hey, but I like tomato on mine. What about bacon?
Hey, I like bacon.
All right, let's look at some guys right now at the quarterback position that are likely to have an uptick in their passing TDs from last year to this year. And the first guy that we pinpointed with the arrival of Jimmy Graham, Russell Wilson. Okay, Russell Wilson. He's obviously was number 3, I think, in standard scoring last year. Obviously done a lot by the rushing touchdowns, which he brings to the table. Last year, that was how many rushing touchdowns? 6. So he had 6 rushing touchdowns last year, which is amazing. It was the most.
And it was the most yardage by a quarterback in the 800s.
Yeah, so rushing yards, absolutely, at 849. Which is incredible. So with him, we think that you've got a maturation of the wide receivers there. You've got Jimmy Graham there, and there's just no doubt about it. He's gonna, if he can keep that 6 or in that ballpark of rushing TDs, the passing TDs are going to go up. Marshawn Lynch is getting older. We'll refer to him later.
Well, they are going to go up, and at the same time, I don't think the rushing touchdowns go down that much. I think they probably stay about the same.
4 to 6 range, something around
exactly,
that.
because again, what you're going to have is, and the rushing yards are going to come down a little bit, but they're still not going to come down a ton because unless Russell Wilson all of a sudden becomes a different quarterback overnight and decides that he has to force every ball into Jimmy Graham is going to draw a lot of attention. So there's going to be a lot of times he'll be double covered, but that's, again, takes another guy out of the box. If you're running a play fake and you got Marshawn Lynch taking another linebacker out of the box, all of a sudden you're going to have a lot of room open up, and Russell Wilson's going to find more big space to run, and you're going to have a big guy in Jimmy Graham helping to block downfield for you.
And he's going to open stuff up for those wide receivers where a guy like Jermaine Kearse or Doug Baldwin, who we think are, mediocre, better than average wide receivers, if they were able to have some big games and do some production last year without a guy that actually calls for a lot of attention like Graham, things are going to open up for those guys, so they're going to see a little swell in their production as well.
Quick trivia question for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who led the Seattle Seahawks in receiving touchdowns last season?
Luke Wilson?
No.
Cole Helfett?
No. It was Marshawn Lynch.
Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch had the most receiving touchdowns of any player on the Seattle Seahawks last season with 4.
Nice.
So Jimmy Graham's going to lead this team in touchdown receptions. Before this season, definitely he averaged 24 for his first 2 years. He threw 24 touchdown passes in each of his first 2 years, and he went down to 20 last year. So you're definitely going to see an uptick in his touchdown passes to where it could be in the 28 to 30 range.
I think maybe probably realistic. 30 might be a little bit tall for him, I think. But
You're thinking 20's the 20's
but that's the thing.
number?
I think people you got to realize. I think his combined touchdowns could be 34.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you have to look at it. But don't expect Russell Wilson to be one of these quarterbacks who's going to end up going for 40 touchdowns. That's not the type of quarterback he is. It's not the type of offense they run. And it's not the type of players they have to get that done.
That's true. And obviously things may change with the draft. Not saying that anybody's talking about them going after one of these stud wide receivers.
But it's a deep wide receiver class.
But if all of a sudden they get one of these first-rounder awesome guys, things change.
They'd have to have a first-round pick to do that, though.
Oh, they don't have that. That's a good point.
That's
they gave
Jimmy
it up to
Graham.
Jimmy. That's a good point. Good point. All right, fair enough. Well, let's talk about another guy, and that's Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning last year had 39. I think we're believing that that number is going to go down, correct?
Yeah, with the presence of C.J. Anderson and them just seem like they're going to run the ball more in the red zone. Kubiak usually likes to go at least a first down run. Joe Flacco had, 26 touchdown passes or something last season. And, it just seems like his first option
27.
27. In the red zone is to go with the run and hand it off. So whether it's a Monty Ball or a C.J. Anderson or a Ronnie Hillman or a Juwan Thompson, whoever's in there is probably going to get the first crack at that touchdown. So, hey, look for Peyton Manning to go back to his career numbers of 32 touchdowns a season.
That's exactly what it is. Going back to the career numbers, realize that he had this ridiculous resurgence when he came into Denver.
And we've got no Julius Thomas, who was
Thomas, and you got him another year older, and you got him who was dealing with the injuries at the end of the season last year. So there's always still been questions about his arm strength. Well, now you're going to be put more to the test since you're only going to have Owen Daniels in the middle of that offense there to throw the ball to. So,
but he's no slouch. I think that's going to be okay.
Slouch either, but you're not going to see these multiple 400-yard games this year. I don't think.
Yeah.
He also has a very tough strength of schedule.
Yeah.
So you're going to throw that on top of it. So but it's understand he's still going to give you those career probably 32 to 36 touchdowns. Just not going to be the 40 touchdown guy.
And one thing I read today actually was that Kubiak said he's not scared to rest Peyton's mind, arm, and body in certain games this season, where he's basically saying that they're going to, well, not even that, they're willing to sit him. There might be times, and that's like a red flag for me and Peyton Manning. There will be times this year. It just came out today where they'll be like, they might just sit him in 1 week if they think they can win that game or whatever. They're in it for the long haul. It's
or is it going to be one of
losing
these
season
things where
unless they
they're
get to
going to
the Super
be
Bowl and
up
win.
ahead a lot at halftime and they just pull them out?
Either or. But they're definitely
that's a
willing
big
to do
fantasy
that.
thing.
Well, yeah,
if
it
you get
sucks.
pulled, we talked about Aaron Rodgers getting pulled at half a couple weeks ago on the podcast. It's definitely something to look at. But
remember when Fox? They were up by 48. They were up huge.
Brock was going to come in.
He's getting ready. He's going. He's like, there's no way. And then all of a sudden you see Peyton run. I'm like, oh my god, that's Brock. You're going to get some playing time this year, buddy. Be ready. All right, let's look at a couple other quarterbacks and we'll move on to some other positions. Ryan Tannehill at 27 touchdowns last year. That's pretty good. Pretty good for a guy that was a wide receiver 4 years ago. They got rid of the man who had most of his touchdowns.
They got rid of everybody.
But they brought in a lot of talent.
I know, but at the same time too, you have to have time to get chemistry with all your new receivers.
It's a good point, but I think he's going to have more touchdowns than 27 this year. I think it goes
27's a lot of touchdowns. I don't know about that for Ryan Tannehill. I think he could maintain it, but I think he'll be in the 24 to 28 range. I don't think he's going to be a 30 touchdown guy this season.
No, I think it's status quo.
Status quo?
Status quo but we got to remember, Jordan Cameron's going to be that main touchdown guy for them.
Okay, but you also got to remember, Jordan Cameron has a problem of being able to stay on the field as well.
Yeah, in a perfect world, he's going to stay on the field. He's going to be the main touchdown guy, right? Because you got two receivers who are 6 foot and 5'11", and Jarvis Landry and Kenny Stills.
Well, this is also the thing. You have these two receivers in Stills and Landry who have both never been a number one wide receiver. So, who is really going to step up and become the leader of that
Well,
offense?
you know who they're saying? I've been reading in the mock drafts who they're going to be taking is the kid from Louisville.
Devontae
Parker.
Well, so again, then it just adds another young wide receiver to the mix. So that seems to me like
it's asking for a lot.
Tannehill will be a guy that I really would start to be targeting for not 2015, but 2016, because then he's going to have time to work with all these guys who are going to be there now for the long haul.
Fair enough. One guy I'm going to sneak in here that I'm pretty sure is going to have more touchdowns, and that's Sam Bradford.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
He could end up on the bench behind Mark Sanchez, the Sanchez.
Oh, man.
Who knows? Oh, that would hurt.
He could definitely break his vagina in week 1. There's no question about it.
But another guy I see having more touchdowns, we don't really talk too much about him, is a Matt Ryan. He only had 28 last season, and he did most of his scoring, through yards. So definitely keep a lookout for a Matty Ice as a later round quarterback for you.
I'll give you
another guy with a great SOS. Third easiest strength of schedule at the position. And Julio's back in full. A year ago, we didn't know if he was going to recover from that foot injury, all that.
Here's the other transition to the running back position, because you also had Steven Jackson, who was there last year. Well, Steven Jackson had 6 rushing touchdowns. So then you got Devonta Freeman, and he's 5'9", 209 pounds about. You're saying, I don't see him being a super red zone threat, so that's going to mean that, Matt Ryan may have to be leaned on again more, or they're going to have to go out and grab somebody else in the draft at the running back position.
And a guy that we think...
Jacob Tammy! Woo!
There you go.
That guy's
That's an upgrade over Levine Toyolo.
Oh, that guy, I don't know how. He caught like 2 touchdowns from Peyton Manning one game when he was back with the Colts. This guy's been able to get...
Scott Mitchell made a lot for filling in for Dan Marino for 2 games.
There you go. There you go. A guy that we were just talking about, Devonta Freeman, had 1 touchdown last year, I think, with the departure of Steven Jackson. No question that you can look at him and think a lot of his opportunities are going to increase. Touchdowns.
Don't think that he's going to be a 10
small
touchdown guy, though. So
yeah, agreed. All right, so let's talk about some guys that... Marshawn Lynch, 13 touchdowns last year. That's right around what his average is. You believe that number's going to go down.
Well, then, look at his receiving touchdowns.
His receiving touchdowns. His total touchdowns.
Yeah, he had 17. 13 and 4.
Right.
17 total touchdowns.
Now, remember
and he's usually been around the 12 to 14 mark every year, but the receiving touchdown number is just, a little...
It was all at the beginning of the year. Remember, he had like 6 touchdowns in the first 3 weeks of the season or 2 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So, but the other thing about Lynch is, he's had so many carries now over. Now it's a 4-year span, so it's like you're really getting to the point where who knows when the wheels are going to fall off. They signed him to, was it a 1-year deal, right?
2-year.
2-year deal, but they could get out of it after 1. So front loaded money anyway. He's the guy that you're going to run to the ground. You're going to get everything you can out of him.
They keep trying it. They're like, let's just run him into the ground. He keeps being like, keep trying, guys. Keep trying. They don't call me beast mode for nothing.
And I give him
I'm not going into the ground.
I'm not betting against him either. So, well, I got him up at like number 6 on my tiers right now. Just because.
We were going against. The reason why I don't want to do that is because last year we were going against him and saying, dude, this guy's going to hit the wall. Yeah. He's had too much. And I remember I literally skipped on him in one league, and I took in a rookie league, and I took David Carr in like the 3rd round, and right after that, I'm like, Derek Carr. I'm like, what was I was like, what was I thinking? And if I had taken Marshawn Lynch in that whole different season. All right, let's look at another guy. Frank Gore, 4 touchdowns last year for San Francisco. Change of scenery, now he's with the Colts. It's obvious.
Perfect.
This guy's going to, he's always been a good pass catcher. I think that's going to be something that there's going to be an uptick with the Colts. That wasn't Kaepernick's game, dumping it out to him at all.
And they had no presence at all at running back in the red zone that was respected by defenses.
Yeah.
Now they will.
So now he is going, his touchdowns.
Because it takes Trent Richardson 4 seconds to get to the line of scrimmage.
There was a picture I saw of Trent Richardson that was so funny. He cuts left, and there is the biggest hole that you've ever seen. It was against the Steelers. Biggest hole you've ever seen in your life. Just to the right. He's like, instead he wants to hop left and go into people, and like literally, if you just like kind of merge right a little bit, 60-yard run. That's him for you. So Frank Gore, great opportunities. This chart tells me next year, that's going way up. He's going to be a nice sleeper pick for you, I think. LaShawn McCoy, another guy. Last year, 5 touchdowns. And then he had 0 receiving ones. That's a guy that you would think would be catching balls, especially out of a Chip Kelly offense. Change of scenery. Now he's in Buffalo. Rex is a ground and pound him type of guy. It's gonna increase for him.
The thing is, with the deal he signed, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's gonna get the 1st, 2nd, and possibly 3rd crack at the end zone.
Right.
And that's just the facts of what they are. And Ivory's had some touchdowns with Rex, and Thomas Jones had some touchdowns with Rex. So let's definitely keep an eye on that number going up, and keep an eye on LaShawn McCoy getting
opportunity.
Another reason why you can count on it going up too is he's done it in the past.
Yeah.
He's been a big touchdown producer.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where certain times, and on his bad seasons he was still getting 6 touchdowns. So this being a bad season, he's going to bounce back. The fresh scenery and the coaching staff and the way that they're going to make him the option there, it's going to work. Kind of like when Jamal Charles got Andy Reid.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Very great point, actually. A guy that I could see going up for sure. The guy the last 5 weeks of last season, Jonathan Stewart, was lighting it up. I think he had the most fantasy points without touchdowns, all yardage based essentially. He only had 3 touchdowns last year. That number, if he can stay healthy, they're obviously going into the season thinking that, okay, this is your year. We've been holding on to you forever. We got rid of D'Angelo. Make it happen for us, fella. So a guy like that is going to find an uptick. I don't know. We don't need to go through running backs anymore and pick out who's going to have a downfall. But let's look at some wide receivers. I think the first one that we all think of on that one is from Matt Ryan, from that situation.
The guy who we just kind of like a little bit.
Yeah, we like him. We never talk about Julio Jones on this show. No way. Julio Jones last year had 6 receiving TDs. This is a TD magnet, pretty much, in most cases. So I'm expecting that number to go up. Easy strength of schedule. We talked on our podcast last week about how many times they throw to the wide receiver. So good opportunities for him. A guy that I could see going down, Jeremy Maclin. He had 10 last year.
It's going down.
That's going down. 10 TDs for Jerry Maclin from Alex Smith is not going to happen. not there. So Julian Edelman was a guy that I thought, he only had 4 TDs last year. I think his confidence is at a point where that's going to be his greatest asset.
Well, at one point in the playoffs, there was a scout that said he is the toughest cover in the NFL right now. Yeah. And when I read that, I'm like, you're out of your motherfucking mind. But then I'm like, okay, because with this new style of corner play in the NFL, these small, quick guys are having the advantage. So, using his sort of skill set and, things in the end zone with people focusing on Gronk and him being...
He gets to come right underneath Gronk.
And LaFell being a decent touchdown.
You saw
in the Super Bowl when he runs that quick little out pattern. It's like, you can't cover that.
And it's also the recipe of him and Brady with their option reads. It's unbelievable. No one in the world, it's like telekinesis. No one in the world knows what's happening there but those two. So I think that situation... And let's remember, Vereen is now on the New York Giants. Vereen was that weapon that was getting a lot of short stuff. He got a lot of opportunities in the red zone. He's going to be gone, so I think that Edelman in general could...
They don't really have that other guy, that Vereen-type guy left on the team right now.
Yeah.
Did they sign Pierre Thomas, or was that a rumor?
It's a rumor so far. I haven't seen anything official.
I don't know.
I'll probably draft somebody. Or they still got...
The Patriots were going to sign Pierre? Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. All right, quickly another guy... Golden Tate, Johnson at 8. I don't know. We can.
How about Jackson and Johnson?
Yeah. Okay.
We got Vincent Jackson, who had 2.
He's going
2 touchdowns last
season,
and a 1,000-yard season, and a new quarterback coming in who should at least be an adequate passer. Let's face facts.
Well, but it's also face facts. How many touchdowns do you think that if it's Jameis Winston is going to throw?
24.
Yeah,
I think that's really that's high.
I think he can.
I think 20 to 22 is probably about right. So, how much is Vincent Jackson going to go up? I don't see it going past 5. I really predict probably about 4.
4 to 6 is a decent range.
4 to 6,
but that's still how many extra fantasy points?
True,
and it moves them up 2 tiers almost. Just adding those points in, because I think right now I've got him ranked at like wide receiver number 40, and it's a guy who I might not have enough respect for after having a 1,000-yard season.
And in the previous 3 years, I guarantee you he's definitely top 25, top 20.
Oh, yeah.
Another guy that you were just mentioning, Andre Johnson.
This guy stands out more like a sore thumb to me.
Yeah, and he's not a touchdown guy.
He's never been. You know what you're going to get from him in yardage, and he's not a guy that's fallen off the table yet like Reggie Wayne. He has never had a quarterback like Andrew Luck to throw him the ball. This is a whole new dynamic for him. This is a rebirth in a sense for him. Matt Schaub was an okay quarterback. Don't tell me Matt Schaub is Andrew Luck. Okay,
when the way that whole thing ended, that Andre Johnson back. See, this is what I've had. Yeah. This is what I've had.
This is my point.
Pick 6 Schaub.
But the point is, He's not going to be a 10 touchdown guy.
No, but he'll be a 7 to 8 touchdown
7 to 8
guy.
touchdowns.
Absolutely.
Because Andrew Luck is going to throw 40 touchdowns.
Absolutely. All right, we'll go into a few tight ends here, and then we'll
wrap. Guys that are going down. A couple guys going down for wide receivers or no?
Yeah. Who are
Antonio Brown is a prime example. He just started scoring touchdowns, scored double-digit touchdowns for the first time in his career. He's probably more of an 8 to 10 touchdown type of guy instead of 13.
Mike Wallace had 10 last year with Tannehill. I think we all agree that now that he's essentially if Patterson can get his stuff together, he might even be the third option in some games for that team.
Well, he'll start as he'll start as the number one option. He'll piss everybody off, and then he'll slowly drop down the.
They'll win the game by 20 points. He'll bitch because he only had one catch. That guy.
Des Bryant? What do we think about him? He set a career high in touchdowns.
16?
With 16.
You know what,
he was usually a 12 to 13 guy.
I don't see him going down that much because they don't have DeMarco Murray there anymore. So they without all of DeMarco Murray, what do you have? 13 rushing touchdowns last year? So if they only going to get maybe 5 less touchdowns out of the running back, well, is Dez going to lose all those touchdowns? Is Jason Witten all of a sudden regaining all of his youth and stealing the touchdowns? Terrence Williams,
there's a guy. He had 8 touchdowns last year, but remember how he turned it on in the playoffs? I mean, I could see his touchdowns going up a little bit and bringing down Dez's a little bit.
Well, because Dez
kind of made a step last year.
But Terrence Williams, this is the one thing that I've always said about him. Why I like that guy is because when he came into the league, what can he do? And what you never know with a guy. Can he catch touchdowns?
Yeah.
He catches touchdowns.
Run after the catch, and he made some.
Not even that,
plays.
or in the red zone. He has a knack for scoring touchdowns. There's some guys that they get a ton of catches and they get 1 touchdown. Kendall Wright, he can't score touchdowns.
It's true. All right, and that's pretty much guys that we think. I think that covers it. And basically, this is a piece. Just so you know, it's a chart that's in our draft kit. We'll contemplate putting it up as a piece. For free to tease you guys. We like to tease, but we'll see if that's the case. But while we're not trying to use this video to sell our draft kit, it's pretty badass, and it's coming out on April 15th, which is almost 2 months earlier than we've ever had it out. The whole team's been working pretty hard on it. Pretty sweet, and we're fired up.
And once you get it, every reiteration that we have after that, you're going to get.
Yeah.
So
you buy it on April 15th. You're going to get every version, like Deanie just said, up until the draft. So there's
You'll
no
be
reason
more prepared than anybody else.
There's no reason to buy it not to buy it early. It's not like you're not getting something you do when you buy it late.
You got all that tax money coming to you anyways.
There you go.
Good point.
Coming out on tax day, boys.
America, get your billions back and buy our draft kit.
Think of it this way too. You're putting that money in an investment now, and now you don't have to worry about spending it later, and you're going to be better prepared to win all that money later.
And you can spend more money on booze closer to the draft because you've already been studying the whole time. You're ready to go. Yeah. From a month before the draft, you're just like on vacation. You're like, all right, when's this thing start? My career's been done forever. All right, let's go. Let's talk about a couple of tight ends. And the first one is going to be Zach Ertz. 3 touchdowns last year. I think we all know that his role is going to improve. Selleck kind of got hot a little bit there at the beginning, was getting a lot of passes from...
It's addition by subtraction for him, too. Lose Jeremy Maclin, not really adding anybody else into the fold. He's going to end up taking a big portion of that.
And potentially Bradford and him could have a great rapport. So Ertz, definitely a guy that's going to be going up. Charles Clay, newly signed on Buffalo Bills. We think that offense is going to be a ground and pound, but there's going to be a great receiving. They got Harvin to take the pressure off of Watkins, and now you got Clay in the mix too. Who's a very, very, very serviceable,
underrated for what he does too.
Underrated, overpaid.
Yes, underrated. Is that possible anymore?
It is
with him.
No, it's especially with him because it's all about the AFC East. You understand what all this happened for. Number one, they signed him to the contract, number one, so that Miami couldn't re-sign, so it was a deal. But do you think that Rex Ryan, an ex-Jet coach, didn't think about overpaying the tight end so that when Gronkowski has to come up for contract, they're going to have to pay him a boatload more and not be able to sign as many of the other players? Hells yes. This is an interplay type of a move Buffalo saying, okay, we're going to pay him this. You know what that makes Gronkowski be an extra $3 million more a year.
When is Gronk getting his dough?
I think it's next year, isn't it?
I think he's signed through 2017. He signed one of those real team-friendly deals at the same time as Hernandez.
Double murder.
That case I read today or saw on TV, it's in its 9th week, that trial. Good God. What a waste of our money. Just
for a guilty guy.
Innocent until proven guilty. Murder. All right, who else? We got Dwayne Allen. He had 8 touchdowns last year, and he missed a lot of games. While I still think he can have 8 touchdowns in that offense, if he plays all 16 games, that is. But I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be.
But the thing is that we also discussed about him last week. He's very touchdown dependent on his points because he's not a guy that's going to give you the Kobe Fleener who had 200-plus yard games. One was 144 yards, the other was 127, I think.
Yeah.
You're not getting those games. Dwayne Allen didn't have a game over 70 yards. So that's a guy who you look at this chart and you go, wow, those points are good, but a majority of them were scored on touchdowns.
A guy that we know is going to go down, or we have to assume, is Julius Thomas. They do throw, Bortles does throw to the tight ends there. They have a favorable schedule at that position, but there's no way he's scoring 12 touchdowns on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
6.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, there's just a lot of guys that you look at. Something like this chart shows me on the receiving side. It's a touchdown dependency, but it also kind of shows you the light on guys that are very reception and yards friendly. And that guy like that is a Greg Olsen. While Olsen had 6 touchdowns, Olsen got 73% of his points in fantasy football, 88 or so of them, by receiving yards. If his touchdown numbers go up next year, as we all think they can, and he still keeps getting these targets and gets the yardage, this is a guy that you move up your tiers.
Our targets, touches, and looks type piece, you would see with Greg Olsen just how much he's been over 100 targets every year that he's been in Carolina, and then last year it jumped up by an extra 22, 23 targets. So that's going to continue to be on the rise for him. He's going to be still sitting around the 140 target range for a tight end. That's money in the bank for yards, and then all those extra touchdowns, or it's gravy.
And let's be honest, we don't know where Kelvin Benjamin's going as far as targets, yardage. He could be this year's Keenan Allen. We do know one thing. Olsen's going to get his. He's going to keep, as long as he's healthy, he's going to keep doing what he's been doing. That rapport that he's got going on with Superman is impressive. So, awesome stuff. I think this is, we can shut this one down. We're going to be doing these videos hopefully once a week. Sometimes we'll probably not be able to do them because we're starting late because of our real jobs and stuff. We're trying to get these done before we record our podcast. We're about to record our podcast on tiers, but this is going to be a part of Pyro Pro, which is going to be the service we're unveiling in April, probably late April, but April is going to be Pyro Pro, and it's going to be a premium content offering that we're doing, and it's going to be really exciting, and this videos are going to be a part of that. So we're trying to give value added, and without taking, we're going to have our podcast is going to remain free. So the full 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, however many hours we take the thing, we're going to be keeping that thing free and not having that behind the paywall of Pyro Pro. But these videos, while they're going to be free until we release this to give you guys a little taste, we're crack dealers trying to get you guys hooked on the stuff. But we're going to be showing those. So going to be good videos, and it gives us a chance to kind of talk, and it moves us a little bit into where we think the future of some of our Pyro podcast stuff could go and be, and that does include video. So I hope we haven't gone too long. I don't know how long we're at right now, but knowing you guys, you want it to be longer, and we appreciate that. I'm D-Rex. We got Stag Party in the mix. Houdini. We're about to shut this thing down and start recording one of our podcasts. Episode 169. We love you guys. Appreciate you joining us on this journey. Bye-bye.
Later.